to say a couple of things about partition. One was the causes of partition. You wanted to explain how there was an economic basis.
Yes, of course the political side was there, but it was mostly the economic side that also was in Mr. Jinnah's mind when he propagated for this partition of the country. He said because commerce and industry and everything is in the hands of Hindus, and Muslims have financially very badly off, and economically it is very necessary for them to be able to have their own zone of where they can administration, where they can have the economy in their own hands. And that is why this Pakistan resolution and this partition were really based on two things, political and economical. He wanted the Muslims to stand on their own feet and be economically well off. And he said it is not possible unless they have their own country and they can manage their own affairs.
But the people who led the Muslim League, people like Mr. Jinnah, people like the Raja of Mahmudabad, and you and your husband, these people were wealthy people.
They were wealthy people, but then the public, we have to think of the public. You can't think of a few individual people who are well off. That does not make a country. And when he propagated for Pakistan, he propagated for the whole of the Muslim community, so that they were not at all economically well off. And he wanted them to stand on their own feet and be able to manage their own affairs and be able to carry on commerce, industry, and all economic affairs.
One thing I don't quite understand, how was it that ordinary Muslims, poor Muslims, came to support the Muslim League? What attracted them to the Muslim League?
Yes. That question you asked me before also. I'm saying that there's such a wave amongst the Muslims that what Mr. Jinnah is saying is correct, and that we must give the opportunity to those to the Muslims who are living in the majority, who are in the majority in the provinces where they are in the majority, so that they may be able to manage their own affairs.
Do you think that was right?
Do
you think today that was right?
That was the reason.
But do you think today that is correct? That was the right thing to have done?
Well, at that time we thought it was the right thing to do, because you see the Hindus were raising their heads. Savarkar had started this communal business. As I told you, Mr. Jinnah was a nationalist. He had been in the Congress, and he never thought on Hindu-Muslim lines. But when he saw that that there was this communal side to the whole thing, and that Hindus were claiming their majority and all that, then he thought that the best thing would be to have the Muslims have their own areas where they can be able to rule their own people.
When you were part of India's Constituent Assembly, I believe you were pressing for Urdu to have more official recognition. For the Urdu language, you wanted a better status for Urdu in India.
I sent in an amendment that children in the primary stages should be taught in their mother tongue. That is, that Muslim children should have the opportunity of learning in Urdu or Arabic in their own mother tongue before they pass on to higher classes. Pandit Jawaharlal wrote his personal letter to me the Prime Minister, and he said that I entirely agree with you, and it is an acknowledged fact all over the world. These are his words in his letter, that it is an acknowledged fact all over the world that a child should be taught in his mother tongue. But of course I don't want it to be, the constitution to be overweighted with many things. I am writing to the state chief ministers that they should make this arrangement, and that in the primary stages the children of the minority provinces, of the minority community, should be taught in their mother tongue. Well, he did send instructions, but unfortunately those instructions were not put into practice for a long time. And it was only about, I think about 10 or 15 years ago that this fact was acknowledged. By that time, the Muslims had naturally put their children in the schools where they started from Hindi, and then they said it becomes a matter. It is now a question of economy, because if they are taught Urdu instead of Hindi in the beginning, they will not be able to get a good grounding of Hindi, which is necessary for all kinds of, for their economy and for their getting their posts and all that, and so that they were not really keen to teach them in Urdu in the beginning. But now, of course, I was the chairman of the Minority Commission in UP, and we asked them that they must know their own language before they can be taught Hindi. So that it was difficult even to get teachers knowing Urdu, knowing teachers to teach them in the beginning.
How do you feel about the decline of Urdu?
I feel very badly. I think it is a very beautiful language, and it is not really confined to Muslims only. It is a world language. It is a language which is popular all over India. And Urdu in itself, the word Urdu means Lashkar, which means an army consisting of all kinds of people, and this was devised by the Muslims themselves and the Hindus living in the country to interact between each other, and it consists of all kinds of words: Persian, Sanskrit, Arabic, and so that it is not really, and there have been so many wonderful Hindu scholars, poets and writers, so that it is not confined to the Muslims only. But unfortunately, political things coming in the way, they thought that Urdu was a Muslim's language.
I know that you knew the Raja of Mahmudabad.
Very well.
Tell me, what sort of man was he?
How many?
What sort of man was he? What impression did he make on you?
Well, he was a very nice man, and he took a great deal of interest in affairs, and he was very active in the Muslim League. In fact, he was the treasurer, and all the meetings of the Muslim League were held at his house. He was very generous, and he was a great host. He used to have all the members, most of the members staying in his house there. You didn't go to Mahmudabad house in Lucknow? No, you should have seen it there. He was there.
Was he a rich man?
Hmm?
Was he a wealthy man?
Wealthy man. Yes, Mahmudabad was the biggest state in those days. It was before partition, you see, and before this, before the Zimidari abolition, which abolished all our estates, you see. He was a very rich man, and his father was given the title of Maharaja, which is a very big title.
And he basically paid for the Muslim League's election expenses. He paid for the Muslim League's expenses at elections and for rallies.
No, that's not true. He did not pay for the election expenses, but he financed a great deal. As I said, he was a good host. He used to have members of the Muslim League staying in his house and all that. But apart from that, he did not finance too much the Muslim League. It was the Muslims themselves who gave money to the organization. And of course, not much was needed in those days. We used to have big meetings, but they were organized by the people themselves.
And the Raja, I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of what it was like in the old Talukdari system. How would ordinary people in Mahmudabad, have regarded their Raja? With what sort of respect?
Well, I don't know about Mahmudabad much, but I can tell you about my own place, Sandila, that the Muslims there were also, as in every other place, they were all pro-Muslim League.
No, but about how did they regard your husband?
Very
with great respect.
It was still very deferential.
No, they liked him very much, and even the Hindus, they were very friendly with him. Even when he was in the Muslim League and he was General Secretary of the UP Muslim League, he, as I said, I told Mr. Jinnah, I said, if I join the League, as I said, I joined very much later on, but I said we have our social relations with the Hindus and we are not going to give them up. So that it was the same with my husband. He had all Hindu friends and on very good terms with them. And of course, one thing I should like to say, that amongst the Talukdars, there was no differentiation between Hindu and Muslim. We were all one. We never thought of on communal lines. Big elderly people whom my husband knew well and all that, we used to call them uncle. And the dress was the same. The Hindus and the Muslims, they dressed in the same manner, Talukdars, with the chudar pajama and the sherwani and all that, and there was no differentiation.
Except they supported different parties.
Except that they had different parties. It is true.
Let me ask you one last question, madam, if I may. You worked very closely with the Raja of Mahmudabad in the Muslim League, nationally and in United Provinces. Why was it that he went to Pakistan and you stayed in India?
I told you the other day that the whole thing is that we felt that because all these hundreds of thousands of Muslims whom we had addressed and we had asked them to vote for Pakistan and for what Mr. Jinnah was asking for, because we felt that it is for the good of the Muslim community that the Muslims should, in their own areas where they are in a majority, may be able to rule and have their own governments. But then, as I asked Mr. Jinnah, I said, what is going to happen to us who live in the minority provinces? He said, well, you have to make a sacrifice. And that sacrifice our Muslims made. There is no doubt about that the hundreds of thousands of Muslims living in UP and Bihar and other provinces where they were in a minority, they all went for Muslim League. They said, we shall make this sacrifice for our brethren, and we shall give them an opportunity of ruling according to their own ideas and their religion, and we will make a sacrifice. But then why my husband and I, we stayed on, because these articles started coming out in Urdu papers that now Raja of Mahmudabad, Chaudhry Khaliq-ul-Zaman and other Muslim leaders in UP, they were going to Pakistan, and the poor Muslims here, the poor people who had voted for Pakistan will have no one to look up to or to look after their interests. And I said to my husband, I said, we have a moral responsibility. We can't go and leave them here. And so we decided to stay on. And I tell you honestly that it is a fact that we stayed on and we helped the Muslims. The feelings were very bad after partition, and naturally government naturally had to give in to the feelings of the Hindus, and even a small knife in a Muslim household meant that he was anti-national. He was sent to the jail. His family was sent to the jail. So we had to look after their interests, you see, and that is why I felt that having asked them to vote for, because it was the question of voting, you know, because elections were coming on, and we said it was necessary for us to stay on. And as I told you, there were these Muslims in Banaras, the handloom industry, the lock industry in...
But just on this point of staying on, by your logic, by what you're saying, it would be fair to say that the Raja of Mahmudabad deserted the people who'd been so loyal to him.
He did. Those who went did desert, that is the fact, that is quite true. And as I said, Chaudhry Khaliq-ul-Zaman, after having taken the oath of loyalty in the Indian Constituent Assembly, after a fortnight he said, I'm going to Pakistan to ask Mr. Jinnah to form that minority board. He went and he never came, and there were such articles written in the papers about him.
But how did you feel, say, about the Raja of Mahmudabad just leaving his princely state?
We all felt very sorry about it. He didn't tell anyone that he was going away. He just went there and left everyone in the lurch. That's a fact.
But do you feel sorry or do you feel angry as well?
Angry? Who was angry?
Were you angry about people like the Raja going?
Couldn't help it, you see. At that time conditions were such that Muslims who could afford to go went away. And of course it did, benefited a lot of Muslims, there is no doubt about it. Those who would have never had any chance of getting, having their children getting good jobs and all that, would never have had any chance here. But now in Pakistan they've got very good jobs, you know, people who, our own relatives who found Sandila, they went there and they are in such big jobs and all that. They were, now their children are doing well also. But those who felt they could not stay in India after partition had taken place and that they would benefit by going there, went there. Well, Raja Sahab did not benefit at all by going there because he left his big estate here and all that. But somehow he felt that he could not stay here. So he went away, but we did not know that he was going. He just went away and left everyone here.
To pick up the pieces.
People.